The legacy of Peter Gabriel is undeniable, but one thing he doesn't get nearly enough credit for is his monumental influence on world music. Throughout his career, he's promoted music and artists from all corners of the globe through his record label, hit singles, and international festivals. However, I'd argue that Gabriel's ultimate celebration of world music came with the release of his 1989 masterpiece, Passion, the spiritual soundtrack to Martin Scorsese's film The Last Temptation of Christ, which was a collaboration of a wide range of talented musicians from the Middle East, Africa, Europe, and Asia. In this video, we'll take a look at the story and the music of Passion, how it came to change the future of film scores, and how it embodies Gabriel's actual passion for sharing the music of the world.
There isn't any divisions between people from different races or skin colors, we're just musicians.
Today we're spoiled with all kinds of great music from around the globe. Everything we could ever want is right there, just a mouse click away. But before the internet, this wasn't exactly the case, and the gap between mainstream audiences and non-Western music was huge. Peter Gabriel, however, changed that.
World music.
World music.
World music.
World music.
There is a growing interest in world music as it's now becoming known.
Gabriel co-founded the long-running festival WOMAD, World of Music, Arts and Dance, in 1980, and along with Virgin, he also set up his own record label and studio, Real World, with the goal of making world music available to consumers everywhere.
Regardless which country you're born on this planet, you should have an equal opportunity to get to an audience and get your music seen and heard.
What's more, throughout the 80s, Gabriel broke new ground by incorporating world music into his solo albums, effectively broadening the scope of popular music. For example, he sampled South African chants in the famous protest song Biko. The hit single In Your Eyes featured Senegalese superstar Youssou N'Dour, and in The Rhythm of the Heat, he even went full-on tribal, aiming to recreate the rhythms of a Ghanaian war dance. Now, Gabriel wasn't alone in his fascination with ethnic music. As early as the mid-60s, the Beatles introduced Western audiences to Indian instrumentation, such as the sitar. Gabriel's contemporaries, Talking Heads, and their undisputed masterpiece, Remain in Light, drew heavily upon the polyrhythms of Afrobeat legend Fela Kuti. And Paul Simon had a major hit with Graceland, an album inspired by South African and Zulu music.
People say she's crazy, she got diamonds on the soles of her shoes.
But as great as these records may be, they still very much are fusions, contemporary pop rock blended with traditional music. It really isn't world music per se. For Peter Gabriel, his full immersion into world music instead came in the shape of a film score. A project which enabled him to explore all kinds of mystical and exotic sounds, unbound by song structures, lyrics, and his pop star persona.
Part of what I love about the experience of being with all these musicians from many countries is that you all the time learn more about yourself, learn more about how to be with someone else, and how to be with the people of the world.
Adapting Nikos Kazantzakis' controversial novel The Last Temptation of Christ was never gonna be an easy task. Ever since publication, it's been condemned by the Catholic Church and various Christian groups, and in the end, Scorsese's film met a similar fate. Why the controversy, you ask? Well, the novel, which is a kind of fictional exploration of the Gospels, differs heavily from the story of Jesus we all know, depicting Christ in a more human light, with all of our temptations, such as anger, lust, doubt, and fear. Music-wise, Gabriel's score therefore also needed to be something different, avoiding the tropes we typically associate with religious films. Rather, Scorsese had asked for something that was ancient and contemporary, of a place and yet of every place. Engineer David Bottrill spoke in an article from Sound on Sound. Since the film was shot in Morocco, Peter literally wanted to write the landscape. The landscape of Morocco or Egypt lends itself to what Christianity and religion was really like, not the traditional stereotyped images of 1500 years later. If you think about it, there were no orchestras or choirs at the time. The music had to be more drum, ethnic, traditionally tribal or folk-orientated. The actual film portrays the people themselves as being dirty, straight in off the desert. Therefore, Peter tried to convey a similar atmosphere of ethnicity. Gabriel's aim was to bring the Middle East of 2000 years ago to life, and in doing so, he collaborated with some of the finest ethnic singers and musicians of our time, all playing their respective instrument to absolute perfection. The list of fascinating, ancient and cross-continental instruments used on the record includes, for instance, the tambur, ney flute, khargul, surdo, tabla, oboe, kemenche, tin whistle, and many more. Through the use of additional field recordings and samples from the British Library Sound Archive, Gabriel blended a wide range of musical influences such as North and West African, Latin, Arabic, Central Asian, Pakistani, and Indian, impressively making it work as a whole. The final result was a deep, existential and truly spellbinding score that to this day transcends the typical film soundtrack. Now, although it perhaps doesn't sound very revolutionary now, at the time a film score like this was pretty much unheard of. Looking back at not just biblical films, but historical films in general, musically they more often than not leaned back on classical Western tropes.
The symbol of the Senate, all the power of Rome.
Even if the films took place in the Roman Empire and the Middle East, they didn't sound anything remotely like the time or region. Rather, the soundtracks were those of grand orchestras, recorded in a studio somewhere in Hollywood. In other words, they sounded contemporary.
What is your name?
Jesus.
That's a good name.
Thank you.
Passion, however, really changed all that. Here came a soundtrack that sounded totally alien to Western audiences. It wasn't modern and couldn't be pinned down to any exact location. It blended perfectly with the pictures on screen, making for a more immersive film experience, and almost single-handedly opened up the idea for film composers to start using unusual instrumentation. We can hear the sheer influence of passion already on the first track that introduces us to the haunting sounds of the Armenian flute duduk, which has since been frequently used in soundtracks like Gladiator, The Passion of the Christ, Pirates of the Caribbean, Avatar, and Dune, just to name a few. Here though, this ancient, UNESCO-protected instrument really sets the tone for the entire album. Its beautiful melody painting vivid images of mystical desert landscapes in faraway lands. While the duduk in this case is sampled from an old recording, on the rest of Passion we're treated to some absolutely stunning performances by world-class musicians. A few of them deserve a special mention here. First, acclaimed Indian violinist Shankar, who appears on more than half of the tracks, really gives Passion both consistency and character with his, to say the least, unique violin. Because Shankar doesn't play on just any violin, no. Whereas a normal violin has 1 neck and 4 strings, Shankar's has 2 necks and 10 strings, making him in a sense the Jimmy Page of violinists. This instrument, called the stereophonic double violin, was specifically designed for him, and it has a very deep and rich sound. In fact, Shankar might even be my favorite part of the entire album. His magical, wailing violin just pierces right through to my soul. Frequent Gabriel collaborator Youssou N'Dour steals the show on A Different Drum, an album highlight and basically an homage to his home country of Senegal. Besides Youssou N'Dour singing in his native language, Wolof, the track is built around a captivating drum loop by renowned Senegalese composer Doudou Ndiaye Rose, recognized as the modern master of Senegal's traditional drum, the sabar. But again, the real star here is Youssou N'Dour. His delicate voice, once described by Gabriel as liquid gold pouring from the sky. Another unforgettable vocal performance is that of late Pakistani singer Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan, who sings in the mystical Qawwali voice on the title track. Qawwali is the highly spiritual, devotional singing of the Sufis, and Nusrat has not only been called the king of Qawwali, but he's also been named as one of the best singers of all time, in any category. It's not by chance that Gabriel saves his breathtaking voice for the climax of the film. Above all, the recording of this particular track highlights what I believe to be the very essence of the whole album. Gabriel talked of how there was a very special moment in the studio between Shankar and Nusrat. India and Pakistan working together to make music, putting their differences and burdened international conflict aside. And herein, I believe, lies the album's true message. Passion shows us that music transcends race, culture, and religion. It has the power to unite, to dissolve conflict, and to deeply touch our hearts, no matter if we understand what's being sung or not. In the end, passion is a testament to music being the one and only, truly universal language. Passion was released in June of 1989, almost a year after the film's release. Gabriel spent that time further developing the music so that it would also work as an album, not just a soundtrack. He succeeded. When we listen to the all-time great film scores, at least in my experience, it's hard not to associate them with the actual films. However, Passion, while made as a soundtrack, is just something else. It's a mystical, timeless, almost spiritual listening experience. Yes, it's tied to Scorsese's film, but it will always work just as well, arguably even better, on its own. Passion went on to win the Grammy for Best New Age Album, becoming one of the best-selling world music albums of all time, and the must-have accessory for the CD generation to demonstrate their breadth and range of taste. But despite the sales and success, the lasting legacy of Passion still lies in Gabriel's devotion to working with musicians from around the globe. He gave world music an audience and laid the groundwork for a wide range of collaborations, like Damon Albarn's Mali Music, Ry Cooder's Buena Vista Social Club, and Manu Chao's work with Amadou and Mariam. At the end of the day, few artists have challenged what we consider pop music as much as Peter Gabriel. He was a pioneer of prog, pushed the boundaries of art rock, and revolutionized new recording techniques. But despite all of these groundbreaking feats, his passion for uniting the world through music might just be his greatest, certainly most humble contribution.